So as we have previously discussed forces before, we have discussed the impact of forces, we have discussed what a force is in our last lesson, and today we are going to dig deep and look at what are the field forces. Now the name itself or the term itself describes what a field force is. A field could be any region and a force could be any force. So a field force could be a region in which a certain force exerts its pressure on that certain object. I don't know if you're still following.
May you please elaborate?
Alright, let's just say we have a magnet. A magnet is one of what we call a field force, a magnetic force, falls under a field force. Now we have a magnet and then we have a metal, a certain metal right here. Now the magnet is going to attract that certain metal to itself. Now that region in which the magnet attracts that metal is what we call a field. Now having the force of the magnet, we are going to call it a field force. You are still following?
Yes. Subsequently.
Alright, we have plenty. Not plenty, but we do have plenty field forces. Could be an electrostatic force,
Yes.
which involves the transference of electrons. We have what we call the magnetic force, where the magnet uses its force to attract metals to its direction. We also have what we call force of gravity. You are still in. You are still following.
Yes.
We have the electrostatic force. We have the magnetic force. We have the force of gravity. Alright?
Yes.
Now, before we move forward, I just need to make sure if you are all still with me in the lesson. I am going to ask you a simple question. What is your understanding of what a field force is? Your understanding. Remember, we have field and then we have force, yes?
I think that a field force,
Yes.
it is a region
Yes.
where a force exerts its powers.
Could be, yes, he's also correct. Could be anyone. Alright, let's move forward. Now we are going to jump into what we call the first field force, the force of gravity. Now the force of gravity is very simple but very complex as we go by to dig deep into. Now I'm going to demonstrate a very simple act. This is a pen and I'm going to release the pen from my hand. Now when I do that, the pen drops to the floor. I'm going to do it again. Then the pen drops to the floor again, which means there is a force of attraction between the pen and the floor. Yes. And that is what we call the force of gravity. Yes. Now the force of gravity could be any attraction between the objects that exist around us. You could be attracted to the chair, you could be attracted to the wall. It just depends on how much force a certain object exerts to another object.
Yes, teacher. You said that we could be attracted to the wall as well.
Yes.
How come? How so?
Alright, now people have confusions on what a force of gravity is. Now simply because the mainly given definition of what the force of gravity is as follows. They define the force of gravity as a force that pulls each and every object to the center of the earth. Whereas a force of gravity is actually a force of attraction that exists between each and every object. Yes.
Since you said that the force of gravity can also be attracted between a person and the wall, how are you saying that so?
Alright, many people have misconceptions on what the actual definition of the force of gravity. People mainly define the force of gravity as a force that pulls each and every object towards the center of the earth. when actually the force of gravity is an attraction that exists between each and every object. Now, the main reason why you saw a pen falling from a certain point to the floor, it's because the earth is huge, and with that being said, it exerts more force or attraction to the pen itself. But if the pen was bigger than the earth is, then you would have experienced the earth being pulled, right?